The Condottiero. Recently, we've been seeing a lot more of this unit, as the Italians have been dominating water maps in various HD tournaments. It's especially popular with expert player Tato, who utilises the unit a lot on maps such as Team Islands and Migration, and even has an emote for it on his Twitch channel. Now, water maps are not particularly popular with most of you, so in this video we're going to discuss the Condottiero's viability across all maps, and give you an idea of its strengths and weaknesses, and look at some funky synergies with other Civ bonuses. You may have heard of Condo skulls, and we'll talk about those a little later on. I've also been having a lot of internet issues recently, so streaming is going to take a back seat and I'm going to focus on making more videos instead. The Condottiero is available if you are playing as the Italians or have an Italian ally. Making the unit available to allies of the Italians is very fitting with history, as Condottieri were actually mercenaries contracted by Italian city-states and the papacy during the Middle Ages. They are available to build in the Imperial Age directly from the barracks and cost 50 food and 35 gold. The Condottiero is fast moving, with an attack bonus versus gunpowder units and a special defense versus anti-infantry. It's designed as a counter unit to the very strong late-game mass hand cannon and mass bombard cannon armies, which are popular with civilizations such as the Franks, Teutons, or the Turks. The Condottiero can be confusing, because it's an infantry unit that counters counter-infantry units, much like the Italians' other unique unit, the Genoese crossbow, which is an archer unit that's designed to counter archery units. How effectively does it counter gunpowder? Let's find out. First, let's look at the stats. The Condottiero does 10 melee damage, plus a bonus 10 hidden damage versus gunpowder. This means that they hit for 20 versus gunpowder units, and that's enough to kill a hand cannon in just 2 hits. They also have a hidden resistance to gunpowder of 10, which negates the hand cannon bonus 10 damage versus all infantry. So a hand cannon, which would do 27 damage to a regular infantry unit, only does 17 to a Condottiero, minus any pierce armor on top of that. After doing some tests, I also found that the bonus 10 damage also works versus Portuguese organ guns, even though they are a siege unit. And that led me to assume that the bonus would also work versus bombard cannons, which it does. The Turk unique Civ bonus gives the Turks an additional 25% hit points on their gunpowder units. This gives their hand cannons 44 HP. Putting their HP over 40 means that the Condottiero takes 3 hits to kill Turk hand cannons. It also takes 3 hits to kill Janissaries and Elite Janissaries the same. We'll talk more specifically about the Turks later on. As a result of these bonuses, the Condottiero is the only unupgraded infantry unit that can single-handedly take down a hand cannon. That's great, it's definitely doing its job properly, but does that mean that it's the best unit for the job? If you see your opponents massing cannons, should you be thinking, quick, get the condos out? Or is there a better solution still? The first obvious tests are between elite skirmishers and hussar. For all of these tests, we'll be using 11 Turk hand cannons. Now, assuming that gold has twice the value of wood, then 7 Condottiero would have the same value as 14 skirmishers. After running a few tests, there were usually twice as many skirmishers alive at the end, which means you could argue that both units traded evenly. There are 2 major differences though. One is that the Condottiero killed the hand cannons faster, so they get positive marks for efficiency. And the second is that not only do you need half as many units on the field to have the same effect, but the Condottiero also train faster than elite skirmishers. This means that the Condottiero is population efficient as well as cost efficient in this matchup. It's a similar story with Hussar. The Condottiero trade evenly most of the time, but the efficiency is even more exaggerated versus the Hussar. It takes on average 20 to 25 in-game seconds longer to kill the same number of units with the Hussar than it does with the Condottiero. I can't emphasize enough how valuable this is in multiplayer, where strong momentum shifts can change the course of a whole game. The other viable units to compare here would be the Arbalest and the Cavalier, which both perform quite poorly from a cost-effectiveness standpoint. Arbalest cost more gold than Condottiero and fall short massively in equal numbers. Not to mention all of the additional upgrade costs that the Arbalest require to take it from a humble archer into the Arbalest. Cavalier, on the other hand, are pound for pound much stronger than the Condottiero. They are a very good use of your population space, especially if you have existing knights left over from the Castle Age by the time you reach Imperial. However, they are also a lot more expensive, and even in equal numbers to the Condottiero, you will suffer greater losses with the Cavalier when dealing exclusively with hand cannons. If you've got money in the bank, then take the Condottiero. Invest your resources into the infantry upgrades, and make use of the Condottiero as a versatile raiding unit, gunpowder counter, trash killer, and reasonable all-round fighter. If gold is short, then by all means take the skirmishers and the hussar, but you'd be doing that without gold anyway. I believe that the Condottiero is a great late game unit choice for the Italians in many situations, but let's talk a little bit more about why that is. First, if we go back to some of the tests we did earlier, many of you might have been thinking, hang on a minute, the Huskarl is taking a shot from the hand cannon before it even starts moving towards it. That's not fair. Well, the Condottiero line of sight is much higher than most infantry, and this has two benefits. In this example, it was clear that the Condottiero was able to see the enemy much sooner and start moving to engage quickly, whereas other infantry units took a shot from the fog of war before even being able to see the enemy and move over to fight them. The other benefit of this large line of sight is giving them larger raiding potential, allowing you to see where villages are exposed much sooner and do more damage. Vision is king. The Condottiero also has some other major benefits. The main advantage of this unit is that it requires no upgrades to be viable. You simply build a barracks and you can start pumping out a unit that has 10 more health than a champion and just 3 less attack, while simultaneously being faster to train and being faster at crossing the map once it's created. The take home from this is that sure, the champion is stronger pound for pound, but the Condottiero is like a can of lightning. There's no need to wait for a little over 4 minutes of game time to upgrade your militia into champions, and no need to spend 1,450 food and 555 gold to do so either. In that same time, you could already have 16 Condottiero on the field for the same cost, from a single barracks. Now, the champion still has its place in the game. They are much better at dealing with elite eagle warriors or Huskarls, for example, but champions are going to be much slower and take longer to prepare than going straight into condos once you hit the Imperial Age. Momentum in this game is huge, and Condottiero give you the opportunity to swing the momentum of the game heavily in your favour, especially when you consider that the Italians are likely to be upgrading to future ages much sooner thanks to their bonus of 15% less resource cost to advance, and that's why the Condottiero is so good. The problem is, the Condottiero is like a finishing move. Once they breach your walls and start raiding your base, the game very well may be over at that point. So let's talk about counter units to the condos. If you're the Turks, you may be wondering how the Janissary will fare. Now my conclusion is that Janissaries are much worse than hand cannons if you're dealing with Condottiero, and here's why. The non-elite Janissary is inferior to the hand cannon. Not only does it cost 15 more food and 5 more gold, it's 15% less accurate. It requires castles to train. It has the same HP, attack and armor of a hand cannon as well. The only difference being that a Janissary has 8 range, whereas a hand cannon has 7, but that's also somewhat mitigated by its higher inaccuracy anyway. Of course, the elite Janissary gains an additional 6 health and 5 attack, but it also costs 850 food and 750 gold to upgrade, or the equivalent of 15 additional hand cannons. Not only this, but since you get chemistry for free as the Turks, you can plop down 5 ranges and start pumping out hand cannons much easier than saving for the equivalent number of castles, researching the elite tech, and then starting to mass Janissary. Now, I'm not saying that you should never take Janissary over hand cannons, but versus the Condottiero, the elite Janissary is still going to die in the same number of hits, and it's going to cost you much more to upgrade that the investment, in my opinion, is not worth it. Instead, you can look towards alternative ways to deal with condos and spend your resources there instead. Now, the best way to deal with Condottiero is to make sure that the Italian player is not going to be considerably faster to the Imperial Age than you. If they're in the Imperial Age and you're far from clicking up, then you have a problem. The only way to do this is via aggression in the earlier stages of the game. Providing you're playing on a land map, the Italians have no real eco bonus, aside from advancing to the next stage for 15% less. This means that you can benefit from attacking early, especially if you have a civilization with a strong eco bonus. If not, and you see that the Italian player is boomed up and ready to go, then you probably should follow these 3 steps. Step 1 is to wall up. Be walled, preferably with stone walls. Once the Condottiero get into your economy, your villages are toast and it will be very difficult to deal with them. Step 2 is to build defensive castles. Leary even said that in some cases it's worth buying stone from the market in order to get a defensive castle up. And step 3 is to use knights to defend, ensuring that you have bloodlines and blacksmith upgrades. And if no bloodlines, alternatively you can use archers to defend, provided you have full upgrades, and obviously take on the risk that if the Condottiero breach your wall, then you may be overwhelmed more easily with archers versus knights. If you're able to stall them out and mass up a decent number of units and defend behind a wall with some castles, you're much more likely to take favourable trades. You'll also buy enough time to get yourself to the Imperial Age, where you can start upgrading your own units further and then push out successfully later on. There's also some interesting mechanics with different unique units. Notably, the Aztec Jaguar Warrior, which is supposed to have a plus 10 bonus versus all infantry, dies horrendously to the Condottiero. Yes, that armor negating the 10 bonus damage from hand cannons also negated the Jaguar Warrior's bonus too. A much better unit would be the Samurai, which gets plus 10 attack versus unique units, and since the Condottiero classes as a unique unit, this bonus does go through, making the Samurai very effective. In the same vein as the Jaguar Warrior, the Cataphract also suffers the same fate and gets its infantry bonus damage blocked. However, the unit does still win the fight, but eventually it will lose the war because it has such a much higher cost. Boyar are a good unit choice at dealing with Condottiero in an isolated situation, but the availability and the ability to add Genoese crossbow for the Italian player makes Boyar a risky choice later on. If you're being spammed by Condottiero, then your best bet is to go with heavier units like cavalry, or ranged units can work too if they're behind walls or in enough mass. Since the Condottiero is also available to the allies of the Italians, this makes for some interesting synergies between civs. First, what happens when the Italians and the Malians have a baby? You get Condo Skulls, a Condottiero with a menacing 8 pierce armor. For comparison, a fully upgraded elite Huskar has 10 pierce armor, and a non-elite has 8 pierce armor as well. Oh, and did I mention that the Condottiero also has 10 more HP than a fully upgraded elite Huskar? Yes, they do, and when you consider that the maximum damage that a town centre can do is 9, it doesn't matter if you have a Huskar or a Condottiero, both units will block all of the damage anyway. While the Malian Condottiero is more durable under town centre fire, this extra durability does come at a cost. The Malians are missing the Blast Furnace tech for the extra plus 2 attack, leaving their condos with 12 attack instead of 14. It still takes the same number of hits to kill a villager as a regular Condottiero, but it takes 1 more hit compared to the elite Huskar. This roughly balances out, but it's safe to say that the Malian Condo Skulls can equal Huskarls when it comes to raiding. Then there's the Burmese, who can train this monster with 17 attack damage, thanks to their infantry attack bonus per age. This allows them to kill villagers in just 3 hits instead of 4. However, if you thought 17 attack was high, we can go one higher with the Aztecs, who are able to research Garland Wars along with all of the blacksmith techs for a total of 18 attack damage on their Condottiero. I almost forgot Druzhina, the Slav unique tech which applies to the Condottiero as well. Now, a video about Druzhina is for another time, but a short conclusion is that it doesn't make the Condottiero much better at fighting hand cannons. Druzhina allows your infantry units to do 5 damage to adjacent units when attacking, as well as full damage to the unit being targeted. However, since the hand cannons die in just 2 hits anyway, I feel as though this tech will make a minimal difference overall. Druzhina is most effective versus heavier units with larger health pools, where the bonus damage has an opportunity to stack up. The only place that Druzhina will have a larger impact here is versus the Turk hand cannons, where the number of hits to kill a hand cannon would be reduced to 2 instead of 3 in many cases. If you're the Vikings, your Condottiero will benefit from an additional 17 HP, allowing it to take 9 shots from hand cannon when fully upgraded, versus the 7 that the Italians are able to endure. When dealing with the hand cannons, this is huge. The Vikings are tooled out perfectly for this job, and they can do it better than any other civ using the Condottiero. The Viking Condottiero also has more health than a champion or berserk, but does lack the attack damage to make it a worthwhile replacement for either one, especially considering that the Condottiero has an additional gold cost. Of course, the Goths get them cheaper for just 33 food and 23 gold, further increasing their versatility in the late stage of a team game. The Japanese condos attack faster, and the Celt condos move faster. They move even faster than a king, and I thought that nothing could move faster than the speed of light. So in conclusion, the Condottiero is fantastic at dealing with gunpowder armies and should be your unit of choice to counter them. The main benefit of the Condottiero is its speed. They're fast to train, fast moving, and are viable right out of the gate. This makes them great raiders, and an ideal unit if you don't already have knights from the Castle Age. If you do have a lot of secure gold and a good number of knights, then Cavalier are a better raiding unit unless your opponents are massing spears or other anti-cavalry. The Condottiero is harder to counter than Cavalier while also being cheaper, making it a great alternative and method of overwhelming your opponents quickly. Well, there you have it, a pretty in-depth look at the Condottiero. I'm sure you will probably still have some questions, so feel free to leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video and want to see more like this, but for the sake of keeping this video concise, we'll leave it there. It's been a long time since I've made this kind of video. In fact, I started the Zero to Hero series nearly 4 years ago now, and I really enjoyed making that. If you haven't seen it already, I would recommend checking out this video about the Chuko Nu. It's currently linked on your screen, and you can click through to it right there. But for now, I'll see you guys next time.